So, me. Nah, I gotta be stopped. Yo, what is going on? All right, man, listen. So, it's mad stuff happening. It's mad stuff happening. Oh man, I should be mindful of how I start. There's mad stuff happening. But I wanted to have a discussion about this one in particular because I really am curious as to what we will see unpacked next, what we will see unfold next. Y'all see it clear as day. MAGA Minaj in full force. She went ahead and she did her UN speech today. And, we kind of got into all of the reasons why she was doing it or the perceived reasons, right? So I'm not going to put anything on her badge and say, like, oh, I know for certain that this is what she's doing and why she's doing it, because that's not really reasonable. There's no way for me to know the nitty gritty. But as I mentioned to y'all, I'm in these psych classes and my favorite part is this kind of stuff, looking at people's behaviors and so on and so forth. And on top of that, I have a tendency to be hypervigilant. So I'm always just scanning the room, just seeing how people behave, how they act, and that sort of thing. And bear with me while you come on this journey of the kind of crazy stuff that I'm paying attention to, looking out for, and what I deduce from certain behaviors. In a lot of cases, it it's worked, but that doesn't mean that I'm always right about the things that I see and perceive. So roll with me just a little bit while we talk about this. And just for the record, this is just my opinion, just my thoughts. We just talking smack. Honestly, at this point, y'all have become like my inadvertent like friends and family and shit. So welcome to the gang. Uh but before we go on, thank you so much for popping in, liking, subscribing, sharing, all of the things. I'm seeing a lot of engagement on my last videos and I just really appreciate it. I'm glad that y'all like it, and I hope that I continue to deliver um, high quality and decent volume so that you guys have again like this palate cleanse, just for something that you can be entertained by while breezing by in the car and whatnot. But anyway, let's get back to this whole Nicki thing. So I have my script here because my plan is to not make this such a lengthy video that I'm burning out a lot of time or exhausting people with too much information because I can ramble a little bit if you haven't noticed. Um, so with that being said, you know, I watched her speech. It wasn't like a super long speech. It was a couple minutes just to get some insight on what the point was, what the position was. And let me tell you, first things first, the station had whispering that she started out with had me a little bit concerned. I'm like, I know this bitch not about to be up here doing no station head voice. I'm not gonna lie to you. Immediately, I was like, oh no, this is about to be embarrassing. But she pulled herself together, and I will say that she delivered well. What I'm also going to say is that the thing that stood out for me the most was this I'm such a good girl persona. She would smile in a certain sort of way so that her face would present in a certain sort of way. She kept her body kind of like tucked away and kind of, I don't want to say hidden, but that's the closest word that I can think of off the top of my head. And of course, we watched her have this conversation and kind of seemed like she was playing the fence or backpedaling, right? Where she is speaking and she's transitioning from this conversation about Christians in Nigeria to all religions and injustice against everyone. And she wasn't quite as bold and vocal with all religions because she is having a conversation amongst an administration that kind of supports white nationalism, white Christian nationalism, right? So there's not really room for everybody in white Christian nationalism, but there's that. But another component that really stood out to me was this recurring mention of the barbs, which I thought was a very, very interesting thing.
About uniting humanity. Nigeria is a beautiful nation with deep faith traditions and lots of beautiful barbs that I can't wait to see. When one search,
Because it was a weird thing. We're talking about Christianity, and then you bring up your fan base and the people that's in Nigeria, and you can't wait to meet them and that sort of thing. And Barb's, don't forget, and Barb's remember, we're always going to do the right thing. And hey, everyone, me and my Barb's always do the right thing. And I thought that that was very, very interesting, and it made me think about something. I also watched someone else that was having a conversation. I think King of Reeds, and he talked about this parasocial dynamic, and people are kind of fighting for their life to defend this stuff. But I want to take this a little bit further, right? So again, My hypervigilant brain picked up on all of these different things, and that talking out or reaching out to the bar really resonated as a cry for help a little bit, because she did not seem like a person that was confident or convicted. And we did have her say that while she was there.
I must say I am very nervous. So please, well,
That she was nervous. And it felt pretty interesting because I'm like, imagine you're a person that gets up and performs in front of, tens of thousands of people, and, having this political conversation that is true to you makes you nervous. I was a little bit withdrawn from that because it made me think, like, what was happening there? And again, in recognizing that she was nervous and she kept calling out to the boss, because it's not like she could, have her husband around to have her back, because what he usually protects her from, this isn't the place for it. He's not really fitting for this option right now. So, me, right? We had this conversation previously where we talked about empathy not just as a good trait, but as a thing or an attribute specifically useful in determining, how do I manage or understand your story? And what can I do with it now that I understand you, right? The notion of people being useful. And this dynamic with her in the ball, it's like I'm sitting here like, yep, here it goes with the weaponization of empathy. Because that to me felt a little bit like a dog whistle. So I want to tell y'all a quick story. Y'all know me and I always talk about conditioning. And one story in particular, I may have mentioned it before, but I'm going to mention it again. We're going to talk about little Albert. And I'm going to pop a little snippet in here so that you guys can see. Little Albert was the kid, the 9 month old or the 8 month old, that they put in a cage or put in an area with small little fuzzy animals, and they conditioned him with fear with the white rat and the noise. And short version of it is, they put the white rat in the room. Whenever the white rat showed up, they would bang this noise, like they would bang something really loud, scare the kid. And in essence, they kept doing it until now what? Whenever the kid sees the rat, he anticipates that that noise is coming, so he's automatically afraid of the rat. And this is the art of conditioning. This is how you teach people how to have specific emotions whenever you see or hear a specific thing, right? So the way that this works anatomically is that in your brain, your amygdala is your fight or flight mechanism. Like, that's an organ inside of the brain. It's a little almond shaped joint in the back. Your amygdala and your hippocampus. So the amygdala is the fight or flight. The hippocampus is the memory storing. And those two things are activated in the event of a significant event or loud noise, right? So they're stimulated by noises, by sounds. They're stimulated by other things, of course. But for the sake of this discussion, we're going to talk about sounds in particular. Keep that in mind because we're going to need that later. But those two parts of the brain are inside of what we call the old brain, and they are attached to the brain stem, which is attached to your movement, heart rate, and all these other things, right? So understand, that's how come when you get scared, you run fast, right? It's a survival thing. So mechanically, you are built to respond quickly to external stimuli. If something is loud, if something is dangerous, you hear it, you remember it, you get out the way. And then after you go through that experience, you do the cognitive appraisal, you look back and you say, oh, it wasn't that big of a deal. But you don't forget sounds, you don't forget instances or experiences. Sometimes you'll take like a screenshot of what happened, and then for other people, they'll completely forget if they're scared enough and that sort of thing. But it always depends on individuals. Each person's response and brain capacity works slightly different depending on what the variability of the circumstance and the environment is. It's just like that. All right. So we're going to bear that in mind. Keep up with me with this one. So when Nick is on stage and she's having this conversation and she's like, Barb's this and Barb's that, Barb's this, to me, that is the equivalent to the banging or the rat that you see in the conditioning system. Because now, if you go back and you look in the comment sections, because the backlash on this has been quick and apparent. It's not really a circumstance where you like, oh damn, maybe this will work out. No, I was worried that she was doing the wrong thing the other day, and I'm like, oh no, I don't think this is gonna be good at all for her. Like, I don't think this is going to be good at all for her. I mentioned the popularity and that sort of thing and chasing that, but I think that this is one of those moments where it's just not okay. And when I tell you, I'm going to insert some clips here, it kind of looks like the Barbs are not only mobilized, but they are also in like defense mode where they're punching back and they're having this argument. And so the conversation around parasocial dynamics, this is the nuance of it all. Because essentially, this overactive amygdala, this overactive hippocampus, this sensitivity in their psyche relative to a person is where this social parasocial dynamic really has the ability to take root and sprout. And when we think about the concept of music, right? Like, because even scientifically, like I'm studying this stuff right now too, where we're having a discussion, it is theorized that music preceded language, which I believe because why? Children who don't speak or have language react and respond to sound. So they dance, they smile when they eat food, they do a little shimmy, all of these things because music and sound has been proven to be attached to the old brain or to the brain stem, the oldest part of the brain, which is a part of all of the other mechanisms and can permeate or activate other spaces in the brain to create more elaborate feelings, emotions, and behaviors altogether. Change your mood. Certain songs make you feel happy, certain songs make you feel sad. Why is that? It's the music. So, inside of that, this is how come you have the Swifties, you have the Barbs, you have the Beehive, because there is an attachment to the reward system in a very interesting way that most people have not had the opportunity to turn back around and cognitively appraise whether or not it's a reasonable thing to do or to have. But better yet, there are so many people that have fractures that they've never had treated or adjusted that they grow up with that makes it complicated and makes them vulnerable to where their empathy can be weaponized. And you have this full circle moment where Nick, who has been through a lot of different things, she knows exactly how to posture so that you are triggered as a fan to move accordingly to protect her, to keep her out of harm's way. She's already prepping the stage to say like, oh no, I'm not that bad of a person. She's already started to play the fence. And I thought that that was a pretty interesting tactic, but it was perfectly in alignment with the conversation that we had the other day, where sometimes people know exactly what you've been through. Sometimes people will share what they've been through and hope that your empathy is evoked so that you become useful to them and you act in accordance to whatever it is that they need from you, rather than them being a stress reliever or a support system for you in reverse. But then she does things like make music, and that's her gift. And if you listen to her talk, when she promises an album, there you have it. And so that's about it. If you want to, cut it out here, you could go ahead and cut it out. But I want to share a little story about what happened with me and my nephew a while ago. He was doing homework, right? Johnny had 3 apples. Somebody came and took two. How many he got left? Type shit, right? So, short version of it is like when I was a kid, it's mad of us. My mom's had a bunch of us. It was 8 of us in total, and the last 5 of us, it's like I want to say it's like an 8 year, like my sister, and then like my sister's like 87, and then my baby brother is 95, right? So it's mad of us, and it's 5 of us in that gap, right? So like it's a thing. Anyway, so we all going to school and whatnot at around the same time, and one of the things that you got to do when you're in school, right, is homework, regular. My mom's was not patient, wasn't her thing. My mom's Jamaican. She cutting straight to the chase, and she feel like if you's a jackass, she gonna treat you like you's a jackass. Like it's just one of those things, right? So we all had to go through it and kind of figure it out. And I'm grateful, like, because usually your biggest siblings kind of go first, and they can help you out or whatever the case might be. And if they're not interested in helping you out, you kind of got to figure it out. I say all that to say, my brother that came immediately after me, right? Like he going to school, same thing. So my mom's is not patient. She trying to go through schoolwork with him and whatnot, and like he having a tough time. Find out that bro couldn't see because the doctor's like, yo, he got egg shaped eyes and not golf ball shaped eyes. Is wild stuff. So he did, that's was having a hard time because like parents just not paying attention. Thumbnail for later. So he had a tough time, and he grew up with that vulnerability, if you will. So of course, when my nephew pull up and we doing homework, like I'm eager because I'm like, yo, I can't believe this little kid's doing homework. Like Because at the time he's 5 years old, I'm like, oh my goodness, he's a big boy now. He's writing his name, is all of this stuff, and I'm excited about it. So the difference is, so while my brother kind of walked around with the vulnerability about it, with me it was kind of like, yeah, I'm gonna figure it out because y'all gonna get out of my face, and I don't want people messing with me. I don't want people treating me bad, right? I kid you not, man. Doing the homework, my nephew he getting a little overwhelmed because it was a particular problem. You know, Johnny had two apples type shit, right? And he starts like getting upset. I'm like, it's all right. I said, I know you and your feelings, you feel a certain type of way. I said, get it out. I said, I want you to go through it, whatever. But when he started to get a little panicky, what happened? My brother, he's triggered now because now he's thinking about what he used to go through when he was a kid. So me and my nephew in the room, we doing the homework, and my brother come in on something. Oh, it's gonna be all right. And I was like, I said, you don't come in here and do that. I said because bro is not hurt. The work is hard, but he is not hurt. And I need him to know that if we're not around, you still got to know how to do this stuff. You still got to be able to look at a situation or a problem and feel it be difficult and know that you could get through it. His arm ain't broken, his leg ain't broken, his eyes ain't broken, ain't nothing hurting. He's having a hard time. And there's a difference between something being hard and something hurting you. And if it's not hurting you, it's just hard. He got it. So I'm talking to my nephew. And one of the mistakes that I used to make growing up was I believed that kids were too naive to understand the concept of respect. So I used to have this idea, especially when you grow up in a crib, like spare the rod, spoil the child, right? Like, so I had this idea that kids don't understand respect. So you got to give them the right amount of fear and love. And in my brain, yeah, that made a lot of sense. And even when I say it now, I'm like, yo, it sounds almost prophetic, right? Like I'm like, oh, nah, that's kind of cool. And I'm like, no, because in that moment with my nephew, I looked at him in his face. I kicked his pops out the room. And I said, listen to me. I said, Auntie is not always going to be here to help you. But for all the time I got to give you to help you, I'm going to help you until you get it right. So that when you're not with me, that you know you could do it. And he sat there. I said, we going to try again? I said, I know you upset. I said, but understand, I'm not mad at you because you don't understand. I want you to get it. And I'm going to sit here with you as long as it takes until you understand. Okay, Auntie. I said, you got me? I said, come on. I said, give me a hug. Hug me mad tight. I was like, I'm not mad at you, bro. We're going to take some time and it's going to take a while, but you know Auntie got your back. I said, now let's do it. How many apples Johnny got, bro? Like, and we sat there and we sat there for probably another like 5 minutes. And he started to get it because at some point when he got afraid and he stopped believing that he could do it, his cognitive functions just went to hell. It was like, oh, nah, I'm not doing nothing. I can't do it. I'm over. And this is what happens to every adult that gets attached to celebrities. I'm not saying every adult has this experience and so on, but this is what I think of when I see people struggling with things like psychosis and attach or parasocial dynamics. And when I say psychosis, it's literally that their psyche is overactive. This is what happens, that they're looking for all of these feel goods. They're looking for these kind of drugs of choice to help them cope with them instances that they felt like they couldn't regulate. They couldn't figure it out. They couldn't deal with this difficult thing. And people like Nicki, who just makes music, comes in and fills a void of, I felt incapacitated at this time. And this is the person that helped me get through that tough time. Because it wasn't an auntie that was sitting next to them that told you, I don't care what it takes. I'm going to sit here with you until you figure it out. So I guess the short version of it is that I hope that if nothing else, I gave you some encouragement to sit with it until you figure it out. It's hard, but it don't hurt. Keep at it. But you know what? Until next time, I appreciate y'all.